so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rugged reckless, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I don't care what kind of crap mood I'm in. Every time I hear that song, I get reminded as to why we're doing what we're doing. This is the weekly call for the Republic for the United States of America. My name is Kelby Smith. Today is August 22nd of 2012. This is an introduction call, generally for the people of the United States of America, which is a corporation under Title 28, Section 3002. We're trying to reach out to the employees, their law enforcement, the 14th Amendment citizens, and all the men and women of the armed services. This republic government, called the Republic for the United States of America, has been re-inhabited. We are law-abiding, peaceful Americans, and that's critical. And we simply found some truths, and we're now sharing these important truths with the rest of the world. So get ready to hear things that are going to sound impossible, but they're absolutely real. And get ready to understand that you're about to be a part of history. And I welcome each one of you to the Republic for the United States of America. Before we get started, we normally open up this call in prayer. My co-moderator, Jim Fitzgerald, woke up late out of having a major cold today, so he's going to take the night off. I'll be speaking tonight for the hour. So please bow your heads with me. Father God, I so much appreciate what you've done in this nation. Lord God, I ask that you just come and hold our hand as we need you to guide us into the full re-inhabiting of this country and reestablishing proper, godly form of government. Lord God, help us to understand what we need to do to serve you wholly and separate. And Lord God, to serve the people that don't know you. So please, Father, just guide this call and bless the people that are listening to it and give them an open mind so that they can understand what we really are about. And that's just a government on, by, and for the people, and that we're operating truly as what a public servant should. And we pray this in your Son's precious name. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to ask a question on this call, you can send an email to republicoftheunitedstates.org. We also have an email address if you want to get a breakdown of really what happened, detailing what went down in this country from 1776 till modern day. You can simply send it to history@republicoftheunitedstates.org. Again, history@republicoftheunitedstates.org. Now, my name is Kelby Smith. I've been a part of this organization from day one. I'm a licensed registered mortgage and real estate broker in the state of California. I've been licensed under the de facto government, what you would call the de facto government, or what you know of as the de facto government, the United States, for about 10, 12 years, I'm not sure. I've been doing loans professionally since probably 97 as an owner, and I've had probably in my life a little over 1,300 employees, somewhere around there. I paid more taxes than the average person in this country. And at the same time, in about 2008, I kind of had an awakening personally in 2006, 7, and 8. I had a company that I was a mortgage broker, and this company was located in Southern California. I started seeing the different things breaking down in our economy, and I watched our government that we held so high really kind of do things that were, in my opinion, unlawful, and gave complete discretionary interest to the banks and to companies like AIG. And that first loan bailout had happened in 2008, I believe. It was $800 billion. I mean, that's not a small number. And that $800 billion, to me, was a giant mistake, because I was watching it go to the banks, and then I was watching it not being repaid over the last few years. Like AIG, has several hundred billion still due. That's just one. So the interest for a corporation to another corporation, I really didn't understand it. But when somebody told me, I had a gentleman by the name of Don who worked for me and who would come to me every day and say, Kelby, you really need to check this out and look at this and investigate this. And for about 6 months, he was asking me to investigate different things pertaining to UCC, different things pertaining to the United States, different things. And I just looked at him like a conspiracy theory nut. And I really got upset with him one day after about 6 months of him trying every day. And he came to me and he started talking about it. I said, if you talk to me about it one more time, I swear to you, I will throw you out on your face. And I was that mad, because he really would spend a lot of time looking at it on the internet, at the office, and doing these things, and it was something very hard for him to let go of. And he responded to me in a fashion that changed the course of this country, because it just got my heart, and my heart joined with thousands of people across this country. We've all together collectively been able to do something, which I'll explain in detail in just a few minutes, that really no other country has ever had to face or do in the history of our world. And so he responded to me that day and said, no, you will listen. And he was very adamant and very upset. And I looked at him and I said, crud, man, if this guy's really that adamant, I'm going to listen. So I went and met another guy named Derek. Derek had convinced me that I needed to go and meet another guy named Tim Turner. I didn't want to meet Tim Turner. I didn't know anything about him. Tim Turner currently is the president for the Republic of the United States of America. His name is James Timothy Turner. And so this gentleman, Derek, a friend of mine, really pushed hard for me to go meet him. He said, look, Tim does a seminar. I'd like you to go and watch it, and I'm going to pay for it. And you're not going to say anything about it. You're just going to go. And I thought, dang. So I actually went, and it was a 3 or 4 day deal. I forget. But after I went, I dropped my jaw. I said, this guy's claiming so many things that he's either an absolute nutcase or he's got a whole lot of conviction and he's sharing truths, but I could easily break down this nut job if he's a nut job. And so I spent, and I'm not kidding you, I spent 6 months investigating what Tim Turner had said. A couple of the things that he said that kind of blew my mind. Number one, the United States was a corporation. Number two, the jurisdiction of the corporation was only located in the District of Columbia, and that they didn't have lawful jurisdiction over man. Many things like that. And I took a step back and I started, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go and I'm going to have to start investigating what this guy is saying, because I don't believe him entirely. There's got to be something wrong. Well, the second I found out the United States was a corporation, I kind of flipped out a little bit, because I always thought we were just a government. I didn't know that a government had a structural component to it. And the fact that it was a corporation kind of blew me away. But what blew me away even further was the fact that the corporation was only formed February 21st, 1871 in Delaware. And so when Tim said that to me, that it was formed in that time, and I went and verified it on Delaware.gov and DunandBradstreet.com, just 2 locations you can verify it, I kind of dropped my jaw and I said, what was it before the corporation? Why did they switch? And I didn't even ask the question in my mind, was there lawful authority to do it. I wasn't there yet in my walk in this journey of trying to figure out this country. Well, Tim started telling me that we've been under martial law rules since 1861. I'm like, come on, Tim, get a grip, dude. We have not, or obviously not in martial law rule. We're obviously a free society. We're running around. And by the way, we're saving countries left and right under this auspices of democracy and freedom. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I was a sold-out conservative Republican. And I was sold out just like you guys on that Democratic ticket or Republican ticket or Independent ticket or Ron Paul or whoever it is you're sold out for. That's what I was. As a matter of fact, in 2008, I was on the Southern California field director on the Fred Thompson campaign for presidency. So I was trying to effect change on the de facto end. When I realized who de facto was, and I'm just going to tell you guys something. I don't want to really break it down on this call. There's a lot of stuff that I do online that you can go check on YouTube that I break this stuff down. You can go type Kelby Smith, Washington, D.C., or who are you, and many things that will explain it. This is important stuff. When I sat with a group of guys, 10 guys, I called them into a meeting after I discovered what I'm about to tell you. And this was important to me because I never saw it on any Discovery Channel or anything. And I'm going to break it down in detail for about 5 minutes because this to me represented a spiritual nature of what this corporation had done in the late 1800s. And if you don't believe me, you can go look at yourself. And people say, well, why do you pray? Why do you bring God into these meetings? Why do you, I don't believe in God. I am not a Christian. I am this. I am that. And the reality is, we're all under one God. It doesn't matter. I can pray any way I want to. You can pray any way you want to. But when I discovered what I'm about to tell you, they also believe in a God, meaning the corporation. I know it's an artificial fiction, but the people that designed it, developed it, run it, and live behind that structure, they believe in a God too. And it's not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's not Allah. It's not anything. It's a very, very, very sinister, dark God known as Lucifer. Why am I telling you this? Because when you get your mind wrapped around this, it no longer becomes a Democratic, Republican, Independent issue. It becomes a, oh my goodness, light and dark issue. And this is why I jumped on the bandwagon with Tim Turner and started trying to free the country. This is critical stuff, guys. This is life-changing stuff. So I'm looking at some pictures in Washington, D.C. I Googled Pentagram White House. And you can just go to Google, click the images button, and type the word pentagram and White House. And what you see is an upside-down pentagram. Now, it might not mean anything to people, but streets are designed for the purposes of it's done by a planner. It's not like somebody just threw some streets down on the ground and said, okay. This was something that was specifically designed and approved by Congress, and in my opinion, I don't believe Congress knew what they were exactly approving. But in the streets of Washington, D.C., in my opinion, there's about 30 or 40 different symbols, like the tree of life, like these various different things, water, power, rock, earth, fire. They made all these symbols in the streets of Washington, D.C., but the big one that stuck out to me that I'd never seen in my whole life was this upside-down pentagram. Pentagram is a 5-pointed star. Now, being in the Christian faith, going through different things in my life and my walk, I've taken time to study some things. One of them is Freemasons. One of them is demonic attacks. One of them is Mormonism. One is Jehovah's Witness. One is Christianity. One is Catholicism. I studied them all. And in studying them, I've come to some serious terms that the culture that we thought we lived in is really represented by a single party who controls it, called the Freemasons. And higher than the Freemasons are the Illuminated or the Illuminati. Now, people don't believe that. They say, "Oh, that's a crock. That's this. That's that." I'm not going to debate that with you. I don't care whether you believe it or not. All right. The Freemasons are very real, so you can't debate that one. In my understanding of the Freemason religion, it's not just a membership club. It is an absolute religion. Is that when you get to the 33rd degree, you absolutely are told that you are worshiping Lucifer, and that is your God. That is the real son of God, Lucifer. Now, why is that critical? Why is that something that's so hard to believe for people? It doesn't matter to me. After investigating it yourself, you'll find the same thing. Now, I've met a ton of Freemasons, and they will disagree, and you just simply need to ask them a simple question. Tell us about your rituals. They can't, and they're held to secrecy. Have you ever drinking blood out of a skull? They can't tell you. Have you ever been told that your God is, that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior? They can't tell you that answer. As a matter of fact, most of them will say, no, he's not. So here's the point. They are a religion held to secrecy, and if you go and do your work, you're going to find out that it is a religion that at the highest of levels, after deceiving its people for a long, long time, because I don't believe every Mason thinks that they are religion A, or B, that they worship Lucifer. It's just once you get to that highest degree, that's when you're told. And then above that degree is the Illuminati, or the Illuminated. And so let's not get into that, but this is important because these symbols, whether you like it or not, are all through the streets of Washington, D.C. A couple of symbols are the compass and the ruler. You can actually find the Freemason compass and the Freemason ruler embedded in the streets in Washington, D.C. Go type those words in Google. So an upside-down pentagram represents this. It is referred to as a goat head. Now, if you look at Anton LaVey, he's the guy that wrote the Satanic Bible. Anton LaVey, go type his name on Google and type pentagram. You're going to see all kinds of pictures of what's called a goat head, and Anton LaVey is in those pictures. So if you have any doubt that a goat head or an upside-down star is referred to as a goat head, and that is an evil symbol, you'll easily quench that thought process when you go and look at Anton LaVey, who wrote the Satanic Bible, and you'll see pictures of him with this upside-down goat head in those pictures. So you look at the streets now. If you got a, gosh, I hope you have it in front of you right now, and you're looking, and you're going, wow, okay, whatever. Here's the symbolic nature of what the United States is telling you. Remember something. I don't want to get into all the details of exactly why until a little bit after I get done with this, meaning why we did what we did and how we had lawful authority to retake and claim this entire nation back into a republic form of government. It was actually a government that was vacated that we re-inhabited. That's why we use the word re-inhabited. But I don't even want to tell you why the important nature of it until you understand this critical component, guys. This is huge because when you get it, and you understand who is the leader of the United States corporation and the world, meaning the entire world, you're going to want to run, and you're going to want to go to something that represents the light, or something that at least represents the good of man and woman in this world, and that's the Republic for the United States of America. So in looking at this five-pointed star upside down, the vertical north is got three streets at the top. There's the top of the upside-down star is 2 points and then a middle point. Those 3 points symbolically are across the forehead of this goat head. Now look, this is critical. A goat head, or a goat, is referred to as a beast of the field. This particular beast of a field, if you look at what a goat head looks like on the internet, there's a beast inside of the five-pointed star. That beast has a forehead. That beast has a snout. It has a mouth. Okay? Now remember, if you don't believe that the United States works in symbolism, go bust your dollar bill out and do a little bit of research on what the all-seeing eye is, all those things on the back of the dollar. Go do some research. You'll be astounded at what they tell you on these bills. Or go to Washington, D.C. and look around and look at the symbolism in the streets. Look at the symbolism across what they show. It's absolutely amazing what they put into the streets of Washington, D.C. And we're going to break it down. So remember, you're looking at a five-pointed pentagram. It's upside down. It's referred to as a goat head, also referred to symbolically as a beast of the field. Now, that beast of the field has a forehead. That forehead has 3 points running across it. Now, that forehead, the 3 points running across that beast's forehead, Those 3 points are Scott, Logan, and DuPont circles. Now you can count the streets that run into each one of the circles across the forehead of the beast. There is only, listen to me, only 6 streets running into each street that's across the forehead of the beast. Symbolically, across the forehead of the beast are the numbers 666. Who is the brains of the beast? Now watch. Right there, right above the middle point intersection there with 6 streets running into it, is the 33rd degree Mason church, located at the exact point of where the brains for the beast would be. Now, who speaks for the beast? If you count 13 streets down from the brains to the mouth, located at the mouth of where the beast would speak is the White House. So, this is, for a lot of people that maybe haven't heard this, this is where in 2008, as a Christian, which I don't like to be labeled, dropped my jaw. I just went, are you kidding me? You mean Congress actually approved this as to be the structural layout of Washington, D.C. in the late 1800s? Are you kidding me? Now, could they have not known? Yeah. Could it have been hidden? Yeah. There could have been all kinds of stuff done to make sure that this happened. It was designed by one man. Now, for what purpose? When I saw that, and because I understand cultism, I understand Satanism, I understand what they're trying to say. They're trying to say, God, I am mocking you. In my opinion, when you put something in the streets facing the heavens, you're basically mocking God. Now, watch this, guys. It ties to the Bible. It ties to everything. Everything goes back to God's law. But here's the point. If you study the book of Revelations, it says, out of the oceans will come a beast. And it gives a description of the beast. And why does it say out of the oceans? Because it's Admiralty law, in my opinion. Admiralty law was brought onto our land in 1968 and made a part of our law. Admiralty law is above state and federal law. There's 3 Supreme Court rulings that state that explicitly. Why is that critical? Here we go. Here's the rest of the story. Here's why it is critical, is because international law, or Admiralty law, or the law of the sea, is basically what this country has given itself over to in the last, I'm going to say 1944, so it's been 650 plus 12. It's 68 years ago to this, to pretty much right now. Our country was, meaning the United States Corporation, was quit claimed to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, through the Bretton Woods Agreement. Now, guys, look, this is where it's critical that you guys get the knowledge base behind yourself so that you understand who you are in this country, so that you understand how to teach this to other people. Guys, if you don't, right now, our country is lost. Even if we've re-inhabited this country, I'm going to structurally tell you why crap could potentially hit the fan and what they are trying to do to desolate this nation. We already know that you can't take all the wealth of the major corporations in the country, and you can't take that profit that they made and pay the interest dividend on our loan that we have from the Federal Reserve. Guys, if you understood the complex nature of how we have been bamboozled by this corporation, you would be absolutely disgusted. What you'd be more disgusted with is the United States media and the fact that they're behind it and they push it, and many of them know it. You'd also be disgusted that many of the people in the media worship the god of Baal, or a satanic god, or an evil god. They think it's cute. They think it's funny. They don't give it. Many of them probably don't give it any credence to go to a show with a baby being killed as a not literally, but as a part of the show. But they do that. Many of the United States presidents have gone and done that and been a part of things like that in what's called the Bohemian Grove in Northern California. How do we know this? Do your research. You'll find it yourself. This isn't hypothetical stuff. We're not making this up. This is important stuff, and it's not a reach. I am not a conspiracy theorist. Everything I'm going to say to you and I have said to you is fact, period. You can't take one thing I'm about to say or have said and disprove it, period. As a matter of fact, we do this a lot. You know, I speak in front of this year alone, I think several thousand people, and taught this very nature. Why is it critical? Because you need to know who you are. Once you figured out who you are, you're going to realize it's not about supporting a Republican ticket or a Democratic ticket anymore, because there is no ticket anymore, guys. They sold the corporation to the IMF. Get that through your skull. That's critical. That's a key component that we need to grab onto. Your children need to know this. Your friends need to know this. You're not supporting the United States of America circa 1776. You're supporting a private interest, corporately funded government that makes every single one of its decisions on the basis of hurting you. That's critical. You need to understand what I just said. That government does not want your best interest. They want to see you hurt. This isn't a war. This isn't anything other than truth. Why do I say they want to see you hurt? Because every day Congress is making a decision that is not to your interest. If it's not for you, it is against you. If it's not benefiting you, it's hurting you, right? If it's hurting your pocketbook, it could be hurting your health in the future with this forced health care. It could be hurting any number of things. Guys, we're in a bad spot as a nation. We're in a spot that the Congressional Budget Office of the de facto government, meaning those people over in Washington, D.C., the Congress, they have a Congressional Budget Office. They produced a report in July 21st, I believe, of 2011. It says the debt is unrecoverable. Get that through your head. That means every single time a new candidate is talking about a balanced budget amendment or a balanced budget or to take the deficit and remove it, they're full of it. You feel me? They're full of it. They know it is unrecoverable. Now, the corporation, the United States, under Title 28, Section 3002, that's where you can find it, says the United States is a federal corporation. Its jurisdiction is exclusively in the District of Columbia. What is the District of Columbia? Well, watch this. This is good stuff. Many of you probably have already heard this, and if you haven't, congratulations. This is going to be a great segment of this call. In 1861, I was told by Tim Turner in 2008 that the United States ceased to exist as we know it, went into martial law, and went into civil war. And that makes sense. You know, we went into civil war. The Constitution is set aside. You got to go into martial law. Well, it never left that type of authority, meaning military martial rule. It never left. It never stopped. Now, why? How do we know that? Well, because in 1871, they formed the corporation. They located the corporation in the District of Columbia. And ever since 1861, when they went into military martial rule, they started doing what's called an executive order. Well, Field Order 100 was President Lincoln's first executive order. It's known as the first executive order. Again, if you want a really good breakdown of this, send an email to history@republicoftheunitedstates.org. You'll get a bounce back, and it'll give you a detailed breakdown of all the stuff that I'm talking about right now. So now watch. We go into martial law rule. How do we know? How do we know we haven't left? Here's how you know. It's very, very simple. Anything that is repugnant to the Constitution, Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution says the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, period. Anything repugnant to the Constitution is void ab initio, which means it's void on its face, it's void to the very beginning. So, how do we know? Clearly, what is the clear-cut evidence we know we're under military martial law rule? It's called an executive order. Anytime a president issues an executive order usurping Congress, that is a clear indicator that the Constitution has no form or face or power when that president is able to do that. Because a lot of times the president, just as of recent, this last 10 years, made many orders that completely went against the law of the land, like an order to strike Libya, an order to strike Iran, an order to strike, and actually Congress made not Iran, Iraq, in order to strike Afghanistan, and many South American countries, and many African countries, and covertly. Here's what you don't know. The IRS is underneath the IMF. The IRS is billing out right now, meaning they're sending invoices to over 270 countries. Hello? I thought the IRS was a part of the United States. It is. You're one of the entities underneath the corporate fiction known as the United Nations. That corporate fiction that is known as the United Nations is the one world order. Is that not shocking to anybody listening? Knowing fully that we have an issue, country is one thing, but knowing fully that we have completely supported the United Nations to the point where every president in our late 30, 40 years, every president has said the same thing. We are coming into a new world order. We have to accept the fact that there is a one world order. Go look, guys. The president, the parliament, the people that run, I can't even think of, the prime minister, sorry, in England has said it. United States, George Herbert Walker Bush, George W. Bush, President Clinton, all the major presidents for the last 25, 30 years have said and talked about the one world order because it's coming to that point. It's coming to the point of transfer. It's coming to the point where that one world order, which now listen, you don't need to believe me. Go look at this stuff for yourself. If you go to the United Nations, it has a U-shaped table. At the end of the U-shaped table is a chair that's leaning forward against the table. Go ask anybody, what is that chair for? And they will flat out tell you it's for Lucifer when he returns to reign as king of this world. Is that not insane? I'm not kidding when I say that. I'm not making that up. Go research this stuff. This is when I heard that from a respectable source, a friend, I went, are you kidding me? They have a chair reserved for Lucifer when he reigns as king? But here's something you're not even going to believe. This one world order, this illuminated one world order, at the Olympic Games a week ago, at the opening or closing ceremony, I forget what it was, did the whole symbolic biblical thing of Daniel 9 and Daniel 8, where they had a phoenix rising above the burning ashes. Literally, this is a part of that creepy ceremony, and it was the unveiling of the one world order. And the girl that was riding the phoenix got off and symbolically went down into the pit, according to Daniel 8, and unlocked the key and let the king of the earth or the world out. This was the Olympics. Hundreds and hundreds of people on the field had their hands up in praise and worship. The band was singing, you are the one, you are the Son, over and over. You have saved our soul. Guys, so if you don't think this is a light and dark issue, and you think this is a flipping joke and we're just a bunch of freaks, I'm going to tell you right now, the only thing that is an opportunity on the face of this earth to save this nation and us as a people is this republic. And I'll explain that. But this is not a joke. What I'm saying to you is very real, and it's hard to believe, and I don't care. Because the most important thing is you get your mind wrapped around it, you go study it, and try to prove me wrong. You won't. What I just said about the Olympics absolutely was an opinion. But in my opinion, with everything I've gone through in life and studied, especially the Word of God, I don't think what they were doing at that Olympics was anything other than to show a symbolic standing because the world was watching. Now, we keep hearing about 2012, the significance of it. Be warned, guys. Be warned right now. The Republic government, which is the only lawful authority on the face of this good nation, this great nation that we have, and our Congress got together in the last few months and we repealed the District of Columbia Act. We voided the charter for the United States Corporation, and we did it lawfully, and we served constructive notice to the UN, to The Hague, and to these various nations that are of important significance. We started getting contacts from the highest level of our internal military and all over the world. Our president has been busy for weeks dealing with this. And what they're dealing with is, what do we do? Because they think that the United States is about to collapse as a corporate structure. Do I agree with that? Oh, gosh. I am wholeheartedly in agreement with that. Now, why do I think this is incredible stuff? Why do I think this is important? Because, look, it's important for you to be ready, but it's also important for you to be a part of a group that is growing, that has a safe haven, that has a structural safety net in the event of a collapse of the United States corporate structure. That is the Republic. Now, let's go back to George Herbert Walker Bush, Sr., in 1992. He made an executive order. Now, really listen, this is a nugget, that if any emergency were to ever befall our country, that the United Nations would be allowed to come into our land and to bring peace. Now, guys, we just served that corporate structure the fact that they're unlawfully sitting in that seat. We just told them we voided their charter. We just told them the important things. And we're also in a fast grassroots effort through this nation with the law enforcement to teach them the effective nature of who we are, that we're not a sovereign extremist movement, but we're just a body of people. Why did I open up the conversation with telling you I'm a broker, my history, my taxes that I've paid, being a Republican, sitting on many different association boards, many different volunteers. I've been a missionary. I've been many different things. I've been in the mission field. I'm just you. I'm just like you. I have short hair. I look clean cut. I wear suits a lot, like all the time. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not this crazy person that people want to make us out to believe. And law enforcement for the de facto is on a fast track right now to give not only us, but anybody that says anything about the United States Corporation a bad name. They are on a fast track. They're doing whatever they can to lie, deface, and sometimes hurt the people that are in leadership roles trying to do something on behalf of the good, on behalf of God, on behalf of the people. Now, this isn't a thing of war, because we will not win if we go to war. This is a thing of brains. This is a thing of law. And if you understand the law, what we've structurally done in this nation is simply sat back down in the seats of the United States of America circa 1776 that went void or vacant in 1861. That's all we did. We didn't take over a government. We didn't restart a new government from within. We literally took the seats out that were left vacated. Now, look, here's your proof. Go look at Shelby versus Norton County. It's a Supreme Court case in, I believe, 1876 that talks about de jure and de facto, two separate forms of government. De jure meaning original, meaning lawful. De facto means not by right, not by law, having no lawful authority. So if a corporate structured government was started in 1871, which we factually know to be true in their own law, We know it to be true on Delaware.gov. We know that they're functioning and running it like a corporation that's interested in making sure its board of directors is fully taken care of, meaning the banks. Look, that $800 billion didn't go to the people. I'm going to tell you right now, that $800 billion would have paid off every house in this nation, not just brought them current. It would have paid off every house that was having trouble or going into foreclosure in this nation. Here's why they're letting the foreclosure fiasco happen. Because every loan in this country is prepaid based on the sweat equity of the people. The people are the collateral for the loans in this nation. I've studied this stuff for years, guys. That statement, go look at HJR 192, House Joint Resolution Act of 192, 1933. You became the last bit of collateral worth anything that now was the charge instrument, because you cannot, the United States being in a bankruptcy, the only thing it can do is create debt. It cannot create any cash. So what it does, it creates numbers in a system. You're the asset. You write your signature on the loan documents on the note. The lender signs the back page of the note. Please pay to the order of, and it gives their own name. The lender gets paid 100% of the note within a few days of you signing your loan documents. The lender is 100% satisfied on the notes. That's why they make those notes disappear in defaults. It's because if you understood the law, when a note is paid, the house is paid for. It doesn't matter who paid it. If I paid it, it's paid for, right? Well, if the bank pays it, or if the Federal Reserve pays it, or if the Treasury pays it, or another bank pays it, that note, it's paid for. Period. You can't argue that point. There is no arguing that point. So when the notes are paid for, why are they taking our homes? Isn't that amazing? Do you even realize you don't own your home? You're a dumb sheep. We all were. This is where in 2008 I woke up. I was the dumbest dumb sheep. Why? Because I was a lender and a broker and a hard money lender at that, and I didn't even know the note was prepaid. I always questioned why they wouldn't record the notes, but I don't anymore. Why is what I'm saying critical? Well, because a corporation took this country over in the late 1800s. The de jure form of government went vacant, went void. The seats were barren, okay? They started incorporating the state of California, state of Washington, and they made them sub-corporations. Then they incorporated the counties. Then they incorporated the cities. Then they incorporated the Federal Reserve. And they did it in a very sneaky, weird, demonic, crazy fashion on Jekyll Island. Then Congress, on December 24th, I think 1913, voted for the Federal Reserve. 3 members of Congress were present because it was Christmas Eve. 2 of them said yes to the Federal Reserve. 1 of them said no. The Federal Reserve Board and the act was never ratified by the governors. They never approved it. They just acted as if and carried forward and incorporated the IRS around that same time as well. Guys, listen. Private interest corporations started using a gold-backed currency called the dollar and created a one world reserve currency that was so strong, just unbelievable, and started depleting the wealth of this nation that God gave us for private, personal, corporate interests. As a matter of fact, from 1911 to 1933, stole the gold. It was the biggest heist ever in the face of this world. In 1933, actually in 1929, crashed the stock market on purpose, shorted the stocks to 5 cents on the dollar, and left them down for years. 4 or 5 years, people were suffering as a recession, so they could buy the stocks up at the low rate. Then made the deal with the people, and here was the deal. You now are the collateral because the corporation was in bankruptcy. You now became the collateral for the debt. So every time you signed something, your sweat equity became the charge instrument that went into and did a credit to that bank or financial institution. Does it sound weird? Yeah, I don't care. It's real. Go look at your birth certificate. On the bottom left-hand corner, it says Pacific Bank Note Paper or American Bank Note Paper. And on that birth certificate, it absolutely is an indicator that is a bond. It's on bonded note paper, 32-pound watermark note paper on bank note paper. They take your birth certificate, they bundle it, they Q-SIP it, and it's traded on Fidelity.com. You don't believe me? Go look. I don't care. I really don't, because I've studied this myself for years, and I've validated and verified everything that I'm saying to you. So you're the collateral for the corporation, period. What happens when the corporation falls? The collateral must be repossessed or possessed. Think about the word I just used. Think about that word that I just used, okay? Because we're not talking bank versus you anymore. We're talking light versus dark. You feel me? Because when the corporation owns you, literally, because you've signed your name, your life on everything, your driver's license, your social security card, all your stuff. You need to take this into serious consideration, because this is an absolute factual statement. On your driver's license, on the back of it, it says, I understand I'm in the United States, the upper and lower case. Let me break down the two differences, and I'll go right back to the driver's license. On the original Declaration of Independence and on the original Constitution, the United States was lower. That's why we have it that way on the Republic website. Why was it lowercase? Because it was an adjective describing a noun, these states. Okay? When it incorporated the United States, it became an upper and lower case. It became the noun itself. That's why. It's that simple. Okay? So the United States Corporation, when you read the documents that you're signing, I agree I'm in the United States under a federal corporation. It actually says I agree I'm in the United States under federal rule. Now that's what it says on the California driver's license on the back. Now I broke that down. It sounds something more like this if you look at the definitions of these things. I agree I'm under a corporation in the District of Columbia. That's what you're agreeing to. That's what you agreed to, your parents agreed to on your birth certificate when your mom signed you over to the state. That's what they agreed to when they got married, and it said the product of the union, the application for the marriage says this, guys, go look it up yourself. The product of the union belongs to the state, your children, your homes, your cars, everything. It all belongs to the state. When you register a vehicle, you are giving it to the state. When you're registering a child, you're giving it to the state. You don't believe me? Go watch the movie 10 Rules of Commerce. That's one starting point. If you think you got a title to your automobile because it says certificate of title, you're getting a piece of paper of the real title, which is the manufacturer statement of origin that the state owns. You will never own your vehicle if you don't have the MSO. You will never own your home unless you have a land patent. A grant deed is not a ownership of a property. A land patent is. This is critical stuff because we've been so bamboozled. It's crazy. Since 1933, they've been just raking us over the coals. Actually, since 1869, 1868, they've been raking us over the coals. So what do we do? What did we do? Well, thousands of people back in 2010, 2009, somewhere in there, got together. We realized those seats were vacated. We sat back down. What does that mean? We voted for our Congress. We voted for our legislative body. The legislative body got together on September 23rd, 2010 or 11. I don't know. I'm getting a long time. And I believe it was 11. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. And we had a conference call of 400 people on the call, 450 people. And we used technology. We basically initiated and started the Republic form of government again. We then got together in November of that same year in Utah, Ephraim, Utah. And we met at a warehouse. It spent about a week and a half there. And we sat back down in a metaphoric standing, in those vacated seats of 1861. We are the first of its kind ever to happen. They fooled the whole world to think that the United States, the upper and lower case, was the valid form of government. And it was, until we re-inhabited. When we re-inhabited, there is so much case law, guys, that says we are the only valid form of government on the land. Okay, look, I only got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try to squeeze in some very important details. Why is this critical for you guys? You got to know who you are. This has to be the most passionate thing of your life. You need to be sleepless for 4 or 5 months while you investigate, because time is very, very, very short. We are at this point in our lives where there's going to be major change. And that major change is, in my opinion, a hardship in this nation that you have never seen before. To any degree, it's going to be amazing. Here's why I believe this. In 1990, George Bush says we're going to get the United Nations in here on our land in the event that there's an emergency. That is the only perceived lawful order ever done by any president to give authority to the one world order to come in on our land. So the only entrance to our land is through that executive order. What does that executive order say? If in the event of an emergency, okay, an emergency, what does that mean? What's an emergency? Okay, so what happened in 2001? Well, the Patriot Act was formed. It's changed and restructured and refinanced the corporation again. The corporation's name changed to Homeland Security, incorporated in Puerto Rico. Underneath Homeland Security is federal FEMA, F-E-M-A. Now watch, guys, this is the stuff you got to hear right now, because this is the stuff that is the vehicle to understanding things. Under FEMA is every 3-letter agency, FBI, CIA. They're all controlled by the emergency management of this country. Why is that? Because one lawful authority, one mechanism, one perceived leadership, FEMA, can go into any state, anywhere, and be in control. So what is the mechanism that they are going to use to bring in the United Nations, and under what control, and who and what department is going to be in control? FEMA. There you go. What is the emergency that's going to take place? What have they been doing? Well, I'll tell you this, along the Pacific Rim of our country, there's been earthquakes bigger than anything I've ever seen for the last several years. They've been increasing to the point that we're getting a 6.0 or greater on the Pacific Rim at least once a week, maybe once every other week. Nuts. Now, does that mean anything? I don't know, but California's getting, California, Oregon, Alaska, Washington, those areas are poised for a major earthquake. That would be a great reason for a major disaster for somebody to come in on our soil and claim authority over it. Now, what else have they done? Well, they've stopped. Barack Obama's made something where he can stop the internet at any time in the event of an emergency. Why would they want to do that? So Facebook and all these social networking wouldn't be able to talk about the fact that United Nations soldiers were rolling in on the land on the West Coast if that were to take place, an earthquake. We wouldn't be able to touch base with each other. Everything that they have done, guys, every law that they have written is for the purposes of biblical proportion. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Listen to this. Remember the healthcare reform bill? Before, they actually took this part out on page 1053 of the original healthcare reform bill that was proposed by Congress. It had the chip that was to be implanted, and it said under the wrist. It gave the location, guys. So when I say biblical proportion, what Congress is doing is biblical. You need to pay attention. This is not a bank or you or United States versus us. This is a light and dark issue. So why is it critical that you join this republic form of government? It's because this nation needs you. The people, your children, everybody, we need you now more than ever. We need you to stand up and stop waiting for funding. Stop waiting for the next guy to do something. Stand up. Do something for this country. Do something for your children. Be selfish. Do something for your children. Get the word out to join this republic form of government. Get the leadership in place in your own respective states. Stop arguing with each other and start joining together and becoming a nation again of people that serve and want to respect and love each other and have a servant's heart. Guys, our nation is about to die as we know it. And if you don't come about and change your own mindset, your own heart, your own desires, you don't get out of that whole, I got to shop on Black Friday because that's the most important thing in my life. The most important thing in your life needs to change. It's that husband or it's that wife. It's that child in your home. It's God. Period. You don't have any more choices. You're going to find out very soon there's going to be a major hit, and whether it's economic or an emergency. Because why? Because the world doesn't recognize them as the power. The recognized power is only perceived, given to them by the media. The people in this nation have no clue of what's about to happen. The price of corn went from $2-something a bushel to $8 a bushel. Gas is going up. Everything is going up. Super hyperinflation is about to take place. You cannot monetize this nation's debt and not have hyperinflation, period. Every country on the face of this earth has gone through hyperinflation because they monetize the debt. You can't get around it. And that's what they did with the QE1, QE2, printing more money out of thin air. That was the monetization of this country's debt. You cannot do that anymore, guys. This country is in such dire need and support of you, the body. And so we can turn this harsh corner and not make it a light versus dark issue so much as just, hey, how do we help and serve the people? Okay? Because that's gone for sure, right? Congress isn't voting for you. They're voting for the bank's interests, right? So how do we get back to a form of government that serves the people? Well, welcome to the Republic for the United States of America. It's the only solution. My name is Kelby Smith. We're going to close out this call in a prayer, and I ask that you bow your head with me. Father God, a lot of people just heard truth that might have been a little difficult. I ask you, Lord, that you give them wisdom beyond their years. You give them a faith to understand that this is absolute truth and that we're not spreading lies. To investigate this fully, wholly, so that they can understand this is a light and dark issue and it's not anything else. But this republic form of government gives honor and praise and glory to you. We pray this in your Son's precious name. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close out the call in a 10-minute. This is a video that an audio that we've played several times called The Republic versus Democracy. And this is critical because a lot of people don't even know the difference. So if you're new to the call, hang on. Listen to this rendition of really what the Republic versus a democratic government is. Thank you. God bless. We'll see you next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
When Benjamin Franklin exited the Constitutional Convention, he was asked by a woman, "Sir, what have you given us?" His immediate response was, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." Yet most Americans today have been persuaded that our nation's governmental system is a democracy and not a republic. The difference between these two is essential in understanding Americanism and the American system. Before we discuss political systems, however, it's helpful to address the confusion that has been spread about the political spectrum. Many have been led to believe that the political spectrum places groups such as communists on the far left, fascists or dictators on the far right, and political moderates or centrists in the middle. However, a more accurate political spectrum will show government having zero power on the far right to having 100% power on the far left. At the extreme right, there is no government. The extreme left features total government under such labels as communism, socialism, Nazism, fascism, princes, potentates, dictators, kings, any form of total government. Those who claim that Nazis and fascists are right-wing never define their terms. This amounts to spreading confusion. Toward the middle of the political spectrum can be found the type of government limited to its proper role of protecting the rights of the people. That's where the Constitution of the United States is. Those who advocate such a form of government are really constitutional moderates. So let's analyze the basic forms of government. They are monarchy or dictatorship ruled by one, oligarchy ruled by a few, democracy ruled by a majority, republic ruled by law, and anarchy, which is ruled by no one. In discussing these five, we'll see that they can be narrowed down to even fewer. Looking first at monarchy or dictatorship, this form of government doesn't really exist in the practical sense. It's always a group that puts one of its members up front. A king has his council of nobles or earls, and every dictator has his bureaucrats or commissars, the men behind the scenes. This isn't ruled by one, even though one person may be the visible leader. It's ruled by a group. So let's eliminate monarchy, dictatorship, because it never truly exists. Oligarchy, which is ruled by a group, is the most common form of government in all history. And it is the most common form of government today. Most of the nations of the world are ruled by a powerful few, and therefore oligarchy remains. At the other end, we find anarchy, which means without government. Some people have looked over history and found that many of its worst crimes were committed by governments, so they decided that having no government might be a good idea. But this is a mistake, because as the ancient Greeks stated, without law there can be no freedom. Our founding fathers agreed and held that some amount of government is a necessary force in any civilized, orderly society. In a state of anarchy, however, everyone has to guard life, liberty, and property, and the lives of family members. Everyone must be armed, and movement is severely restricted because one's property has to be protected at all times. Civilized people have always hired someone to do the guarding, a sheriff, a police force, or some branch of government. Once law enforcement was in place, the people were freer. They could leave their property, work in the fields, and so on. In short, the proper amount of government makes everyone freer. There are some who advocate anarchy, however, not because they want no government, but because they don't like what they have. They use anarchy as a tool for revolutionary change. The condition of anarchy is very much like a vacuum where something rushes in to fill it. These calculating anarchists work to break down the existing government with rioting, killing, looting, and terrorism. Tragically, the people living in such chaos often go to those best able to put an end to it and beg them to take over and restore order. And who is best able to put an end to the chaos? The very people who started it. The anarchists who created the problem then create a government run by them, an oligarchy, where they have total power. This is exactly what happened in Russia that led to Lenin taking total power, and in Germany where Hitler's brown shirts created the chaos that brought him to power. But anarchy isn't a stable form of government. It's a quick transition from something that exists to something desired by the power-hungry. It's a temporary condition, and because it isn't permanent, we eliminate it as well. The word democracy comes from two Greek words, demos, meaning people, and kratein, meaning to rule. Democracy, therefore, means the rule of the people, majority rule. This, of course, sounds good, but suppose the majority decides to take away one's home, or business, or children. Obviously, there has to be a limit. The flaw in democracy is that the majority isn't restrained. If more than half the people can be persuaded to want something in a democracy, they rule. What about republic? Well, that comes from the Latin, res meaning thing, and publica meaning public. It means the public thing, the law. A true republic is one where the government is limited by law, leaving the people alone. America's founders had a clean slate to write on. They could have set up an oligarchy. In fact, there were some who wanted George Washington to be their king. But the founding fathers knew history, and they chose to give us the rule of law in a republic, not the rule of a majority in a democracy. Why? Let's demonstrate the difference in the setting of the Old West. Consider a lynch mob in a democracy. 35 horseback riders chase one lone gunman. They catch him, and they vote 35-1 to hang him. Democracy has triumphed, and there's one less gunman to contend with. Now consider the same scenario in a republic. The 35 horseback riders catch the gunman and vote 35 to 1 to hang him. But the sheriff arrives, and he says, "You can't kill him. He's got his right to a fair trial." So they take the gunman back to town. A jury of his peers is selected, and they hear the evidence and the defense, and they decide if he shall hang. Does the jury even decide by majority rule? No, it has to be unanimous, or he goes free. The rights of the gunman aren't subject to majority rule, but to the law. This is the essence of a republic. Many Americans would be surprised to learn that the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution, nor does it appear in any of the constitutions of the 50 states. The founders did everything they could to keep us from having a democracy. James Madison, rightly known as the father of the Constitution, wrote in essay number 10 of the Federalist Papers, "Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Alexander Hamilton agreed, and he stated, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in despotism or in the extremes of democracy." Samuel Adams, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself." The founders had good reason to look upon democracy with contempt, because they knew that the democracies in the early Greek city-states produced some of the wildest excesses of government imaginable. In every case, they ended up with mob rule, then anarchy, and finally tyranny under an oligarchy. During that period in Greece, there was a man named Solon who urged creation of a fixed body of law not subject to majority whims. But where the Greeks never adopted Solon's wise counsel, the Romans did. Based on what they knew of Solon's laws, they created the 12 tables of the Roman law and, in effect, built a republic that limited government power and left the people alone. Since government was limited, the people were free to produce, with the understanding that they could keep the fruits of their labor. In time, Rome became wealthy and the envy of the world. In the midst of plenty, however, the Roman people forgot what freedom entailed. They forgot that the essence of freedom is the proper limitation of government. When government power grows, people freedom recedes. Once the Romans dropped their guard, power-seeking politicians began to exceed the powers granted them in the Roman Constitution. Some learned that they could elect politicians who would use government power to take property from some and give it to others. Agriculture subsidies were introduced, followed by housing and welfare programs. Inevitably, taxes rose and controls over the private sector were imposed. Soon, a number of Rome's producers could no longer make ends meet, and they went on the dole. Productivity declined, shortages developed, and mobs began roaming the streets, demanding bread and circuses from the government. Many were induced to trade freedom for security. Eventually, the whole system came crashing down. They went from a republic to a democracy, and ended up with an oligarchy under a progression of the Caesars. Thus, democracy itself is not a stable form of government. Instead, it is the gradual transition from limited government to the unlimited rule of an oligarchy. Knowing this, we as Americans are ultimately left with only two choices. We can keep our republic, as Franklin put it, or we will inevitably end up with an oligarchy, a tyranny of the elite.